your support is paramount to the continuation of organizations like this and their efforts in our community. For me, myself, I was introduced earlier, it's always a massive pleasure for me. I don't know if I'd say privilege, because I feel like, the voices of our most marginalized, like including me, in our community, I feel should always be amplified. But it's absolutely a pleasure to be able to speak with and for the people. My connection to For the People started about a year ago when I met my beautiful friend Z over here, and it has just blossomed since then. For the People does many things to contribute to our community, but the thing that I appreciate about them the most is that they're the only organization that I've seen in the PNW to, at their foundational level, center the most marginalized in our community, the most at risk in our community, the folks who need the most amplification of their voices, of their lives, of their needs, and welcomes them in so freely into the organization. And there's so many FTPOs inside this organization that embody those marginalizations, that carry them forward, that act as voices of their communities, that are constantly putting themselves at risk, and to do so. And oftentimes these individuals, not only are they underserved or disenfranchised, but they have a habit of overworking. They have a habit of pushing themselves way past their limits for their community. They have a habit of burning out. And then all of these things and all of these ways of moving throughout their communities comes off to individuals in ways that unfortunately puts them at great risk for being worked to death and being taken advantage of. And For the People's mission, in a big way, is to counteract that and say, actually, no, like, you need, as an FTPO, as an organizer, you need time off. You need to take time off. You need to take time for self-care. Because if our FTPOs, if our organizers aren't taking care of themselves, not just in For the People, but all around our community, they're going to fade fast, they're going to fall away, and that work isn't going to be done any longer. And we have to center these individuals, lift them up in our community for the risk that they're taking every day to lift us up in so many ways and lift our needs up. For the People is changing how we think of funding the movement. Instead of sending our resources to big nonprofits that spend a lot on overhead and never show us any results, we need to keep our resources local, donate to projects happening in our communities, and support our local organizers who have just been doing the work for years, often underappreciated or unacknowledged. These organizers need resources to do valuable organizing projects in the community. They stretch the few resources. They get so much further than any donation that is sent to a huge NGO. Because an experienced organizer knows how to use it and stretch every penny. Our organizers get results you can actually see, as you've seen and heard tonight, and as you've seen and heard for years. They get the job done. Make no mistake, and they're not afraid to take on powerful opposition to do so. They are anti-racist, anti-patriarchy, and have a decolonial framework. They need to be able to ask for what they need and not be rejected or repressed by respectability politics, patriarchy, racism, capitalism, etc. They spent a lot of time this year getting to know new potential FTPOs because they were building relationships of trust and accountability, which lays the groundwork for upcoming FTPOs to be announced in 2020. And stay tuned for this in the near future. Hello, hello. That is valuable organizing that will build resilient and long-lasting community, not just reactionary activism. We thank you for one-time contributions. But if you can, a smaller sustained monthly contribution is better for movement building because FTP and FTPOs can plan ahead while counting on that support. For me personally, being a multi-marginalized, Black, trans, non-binary activist, an organizer in the area and in areas that I've lived in, actually got my start on the streets of Nashville and from the Deep South. And my first organization that I worked with was Black Lives Matter when they were at their grassroots level. And I was on the streets at 18 years old, stayed there for 3 years, and worked mostly with the youth there, with queer youth, Two-Spirit, LGBTQIA+ youth, who were not only being disenfranchised and removed from their houses by their own families and people that they trusted the most, but they were being removed by organizations and institutions that had declared their alliance with them, that had declared that they would care for them when no one else would. And these organizations, even though they harbored individuals who were looking at these kids' best interests, the people who were funding these organizations were not. And a lot of them pulled out. A lot of these kids ended up houseless. And that really radicalized me at a very young age. And I began realizing that I had to reach out to my community, continue doing the work that I was doing. I couldn't rely on a 9-to-5. I couldn't rely on my family. I couldn't rely on my friends to support me financially with housing, all of my other needs, et cetera. I had to depend on my community. And putting all of that trust was some of the hardest work I've ever had to do. Putting that trust in my community, but also, you know, building relationships with the people in that community, relationships that were long-lasting, relationships where they knew me, I knew them, and they knew the work that I did, so that they could have enough reverence for it and understanding for it in order to support it. And I say for myself, personally, there were moments where I couldn't afford housing without my community. I couldn't afford to live. I couldn't afford food. I couldn't afford autonomy over myself, over my body and my life. Having to depend on sex work, having to depend on, you know, survival sex and all these ways of being and interacting, moving in the world, where I had to sacrifice elements of my body and myself and my identity in order to make it. Community reached up, pulled me out of those depths and said, no, we got you, we've got you. The community that I spent all of that time sacrificing and moving, pushing with me, pulling up with me. Someone told me once, you know, Ganesha, you spend too much time pushing in opposition against things when you can move with it. And I said, for people like me, there is no such privilege as being able to move through opposition. I have to push against it. And that's why I was given my name. I was given the name Ganesha because of my capabilities of destroying obstacles, of pushing through them, of defying order when it is oppressive, of defying order when it is colonial, of defying order when it is patriarchal. So I can say for myself personally, those contributions that I received from my community, the monetary contributions especially, when they were over a few months period, when they were monthly donations, when they were periodic donations that built up over time, those benefited me far more than the one-time donations, whether they were hundreds of dollars at once or not. Because what those stretched out donations mean symbolically is accountability. They represent accountability. And when we're forging bonds and relationships of accountability in community with those who are less marginalized, and they are supporting those who are more marginalized, we are forming long-lasting relationships. We are forming community, we're cultivating community, we're organizing together, we're mobilizing together. And that's the goal, I believe, of any organization that believes in community organizing, indigenous sovereignty, and environmental justice, et cetera. We're looking to raise $15,000 to $18,000 today. Seattle is one of the wealthiest cities in the world. We know we can do this for the people. We're challenging you to make this happen. You can contribute online at forthepeople.earth. That's forthepeople.earth. forthepeople.earth. Share the website link with your community and talk to them about FDP's work. Talk about our organizers who you support and how effective their projects are in building change. I would like to thank all of you just for attending tonight. We're coming to a close. I hope everyone who participated tonight got as much out of this event as I did. It was, thank you. Thank you. It was so lovely to see our FTPOs and other members, other board members come up and speak truth to power tonight. It was so lovely to hear all of their individual stories of resistance and how those stories and those prayers came together to form For the People and form other organizations that they're involved in that are working directly with the community to uplift the people that need to be uplifted the most and to provide them with the resources that they so desperately need, as well as fighting against government tyranny and oppression, fighting against colonialism, and pushing for environmental justice and food sovereignty. We have so many levels of contributions from the folks inside FTP, and all of your attendance tonight, everyone in attendance tonight is actually celebrating those contributions with us. They're celebrating all of those levels of work and activism and movement work that people are putting into this, organizing work that people are putting into this organization. So thank you for showing up and celebrating with us. It's another year. Another year. They say tomorrow's not guaranteed, but I have faith that we have another good year ahead of us. And I'm very excited personally for the work that I'm going to be doing with FTP going forward into the new year. Woo! Thank you so much. FTP, 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 FTP.